contribute to the second edition of Global Policy Forum that ISPI is proud to organize together with Bocconi University, and I warmly say good afternoon to Presidente Monti, President of Bocconi University. Thank you very much. And wish to salute the Secretary General of OECD, Mr. Corman, as well as the other co-host, Professor Brondio Negoro, who is the chair of the Indonesian T20, since this is Indonesian turn to chair the G20. Actually, coming here, a question raised to my head, that is, actually, we are going there to celebrate, in a way, to speak about multilateralism, about globalization, in hard times when geopolitics seems to have the upper hand and globalization seems no longer riding high, not to speak about multilateralism. Well, I must say, as a matter of fact, in ISPI, we are deeply convinced and big fans of globalization, of the multilateral tools. And we see purpose and we see importance in discussing it in frameworks so authoritative as the ones in which we find ourselves. With one proviso, though, that is, we have not to be traditional. We have to reinvent what globalization means, what multilateralism means, trying to bring a fresh start to them, starting with a bottom-up approach. And seeing here so many young people is encouraging, enlightening, and actually encourages us in this endeavor. So thank you very much, and I wish to call here to take the word President Monti, please.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Also, on behalf of Rector Verona, I wish to welcome all of you to the Global Policy Forum and to Bocconi University. We are very grateful to our partners, ISPI, the OECD, and the Think 20 Indonesia, for having put together such a distinguished group of thought leaders, policymakers, and senior experts from all over the world. We look forward to listening to their analysis and policy recommendations concerning the major challenges facing the globe, from digital and green transitions to the war in Ukraine and to its tragic humanitarian, geopolitical, and economic consequences. As a university, we do believe firmly that encouraging an open dialogue based on freedom of thought and acceptance of diversity is always worthwhile and particularly valuable in this moment in history when, and here let me quote Henry Kissinger, recently interviewed by Neil Ferguson for the Sunday Times, anger has replaced dialogue as a way to carry out disputes, and disagreement has become a clash of cultures. This is something we must firmly reject. And it is also through initiatives like the Global Policy Forum that we can contribute to a constructive exchange of ideas, which is the only starting point to avoid conflicts. Conflicts like the one that is hitting us in the heart of Europe. We have students, faculty, staff, and alumni from both Ukraine and Russia within our university community. We do care for all of them. We are aware and very saddened by the lasting damage this conflict is causing, and we are deeply committed by coordinating efforts with the Italian and European universities to support people suffering violations of human rights. Bocconi has in fact put in place a program aimed at hosting forced migrant students from Ukraine, offering specific research positions and visiting professorships and exchanging students with Ukrainian university. In expressing our gratitude to the speakers and to all of you in attendance, and to Paolo Magri, who is the mastermind of this initiative, I am particularly honored to announce the video connection with the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. Welcome, Mr. President. It's a great honor and pleasure to have you today with us. Your intervention, Mr. President, today is both very focused and widely broad-based. Very focused because you are talking to Italy, a country with which you already had substantial dialogues. And as you will be aware, tomorrow in the Senate there is going to be a quite crucial vote on weapons support to your country. But your presence here today is also much wider based, not only because Bocconi is a multinational university with about 100 different nationalities of students and teachers, but also because of the partnership with ISPI, with the OECD, and with the Indonesian G20 initiative, Think 20. So, and particularly through this and through the OECD and through ISPI, your voice will be reaching a very wide audience, especially in youth and students. And the new generations, Mr. President, badly need examples, badly need to see someone with courage, strength, the ability to inspire people towards these virtues. So you are a unique example of all this today. And I'm sure that your presence will have a lasting influence on each of us for a long time to go. Thank you very much, Mr. President. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Jim Masolo. I would like to thank you, Mary Munti, for inviting me, and I would like to thank for supporting our students, for the program and the support extending assistance to displaced students and our people. This is our future. We by no means want to lose it, and we do want them by getting your warmth and education experience to come back to our land. And thank you very much for preserving our future, our students. Now I would like to make an address to the participants of the forum. Dear friends, I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak to you today. Everything needs to be done today. It just happens so that today is the International Refugee Day. And since not so long ago, this day is a painful holiday for millions of Ukrainians, to be more precise, more than 12 million citizens. Can you imagine that? These are the people who, in the beginning of this year, had their house full security, their plans for future, and all of that was destroyed by Russian invasion. More than 12 million Ukrainians became refugees. They left their communities, they left their homes to search for safe space, a safe haven at other territory, at least where Russian artillery will not reach them. More than 5 million out of these 12 have left the country, and they found refuge in abroad, in particular in Italy. I would like to thank again your people, your cities, your government and Prime Minister Draghi for the assistance to our people, first of all, women and children. That is extremely important. But what is our objective today? We have to make sure that refugees and displaced come back home, no matter where they look for the refuge and shelter. We have to keep them interested and capable of coming back to Ukraine. We can create a historic precedent. In the earlier days, when the aggressor was fighting against other countries, he was thinking that the Ukraine's back will be broken. But we have proven that it is not possible to break Ukraine. This is why it's a key moment for Ukrainians to come back, possibility to come, because Europe is going through one of the largest migration crises because of war in Ukraine. During several months only, 12 million people have left their homes. What was the last time this happened in the past? The only thing I can remember is the Second World War, and that was a deliberate act. 500,000 in Mariupol, 100,000 in Severodonetsk, 22,000 in Volnovakha. This is the population of those cities, but Russia destroyed everything there with artillery, with aviation and missiles. They didn't really were discreet in doing this. So, and I can name thousands, hundreds of places that were destroyed and dozens that are still under threat. Now Russia is trying to pull back their forces, to organize their forces to occupy Kharkiv. We have deoccupied already, and they want to come back again, and that's 1.5 million citizen city. They keep bombarding the city of Mykolaiv, and there's almost 500,000 citizen city. They want to occupy Slavyansk, and it was 100,000 city before the war. Of course, we will do our best to stop the occupiers and to protect the people, but to do it faster, we need your support. We need modern weaponry, weaponry that would have better capability than the Russian weapons. And this is why I'm using so many emotions and times and efforts to convince all of our partners to transfer to us powerful pieces of weaponry. This is the matter of life and death. And the second question is economy. While Russian missiles are hitting our cities, it is not possible to have a normal economic life. Almost half of our economic system is not operational now. Just imagine what would it mean if half of the Italian economy would be blocked, in particular your industrial elements. None of the your countries would be able to stand against this without the support. When we are saying that we need about $5 billion a month to fill the deficit gap, it's not about money, it's about the number of Ukrainians who would be able to continue living during these times in Ukraine. And the third item is rebuilding. We have to do everything possible so that after the victory, which will come undoubtedly, we could restore normal livelihoods in the areas where Russian occupiers were trying to leave only ruins behind. And this life should be so up-to-date and so safe that it would also hit the aggressor back. Not just sanctions, not just physical losses of Russian army in the battlefield, but the fact that life will be restored in Ukraine, livelihood would be a priority. The fact that we can come back from ashes and the aggressor will be left with losses and degradation. Our goal is for this migration crisis in Europe, caused by the Russian war, of course, and only by Russian war, would become the last crisis of its sort, so that no any other aggressor in future could think that by using war instruments he could destroy the life of any European countries. So the weaponry, the financial support, and the rebuilding of Ukraine are three elements that have to trigger the change. But this is not all we need to do. Russian war against us have triggered also a global food crisis, and unless we stop this, 12 million displaced people will be just a drop in the sea when new migration processes will start. I just addressed the representatives of the African Union before this, and I was emphasizing the food security. Ukraine can supply enough food products to satisfy the critical demands for countries in Africa, Asia, Latin America. Without our experts, there's a global deficit, and that could lead to political, economic, and migration chaos. And it is only this year that we have to do everything to make sure that the next year we won't need to discuss on this day of refugees the fate of many more millions of refugees in the countries that in Europe and that border with Europe. Today, the decisions of European politicians determine the future of many countries, whether we will have peace in Ukraine or not, and whether we will be addressing these challenges that we have talked today about. And I do want you to be very active. I'm very grateful to Italy for your principled position, but we do even more for Ukraine to win. I would like to repeat, weapon, financial support, and rebuilding of Ukraine are three elements that can make a difference globally. Thank you for your attention. Slava Ukraini. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, when we hear and see you speak, we see a man infusing strength to his country and asking the world to help protect that country. But we also feel the man who tries to defend the values which we feel are exactly the same values that we have in the European Union. And it is so encouraging for all of us to see how strongly you wish to be a member of the European Union, and it must be encouraging for you to see with what enthusiasm most citizens and countries of the European Union would like you to join immediately. You also know that that is not physically and technically possible, but I'm sure that the strength of the enthusiasm towards welcoming Ukraine as soon as possible will have concrete consequences. You have been, Mr. President, generous enough to allow 2 questions to be asked of you. And the first question will come from a student of Bocconi, Denisa Muhammeti. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Denisa Muhammeti, and I am a G20 Global Ambassador. My question to you is, the EU accession process usually takes years. What are your expectations from the EU, and what further steps is Ukraine going to take? Thank you.
Do you wish to respond each of the questions directly, immediately, or should we get the second question first? As you wish. Okay, I understand your voiceless expression as saying, let's get also the second question. Okay, which is from Stefania Battistini, a journalist from TG1, the widest channel of national news in our country. Mrs. Battistini, the floor is yours.
Do you hear me? President Zelensky, what kind of role should
Were you able to understand? No.
No, we didn't hear the question.
Mrs. Battistini, would you mind coming up here?
President Zelensky, we arrived in Ukraine 10 days before the invasion. Now I would like to ask you which kind of role should and could Italy and the European Union play in peace negotiations? Thank you.
Would you like to have more questions, Mr. President? Do you have time for more questions? No. Okay.
I'm prepared to answer.
So, please, go ahead.
I'm prepared for any number of questions if my answers can bring closer the peace and the end of war in Ukraine. I wouldn't mind many questions, but I'm grateful for these questions that you have asked. First of all, as regards the European Union, in our country, every Ukrainian, every citizen, and for every person, the main thing is motivation. What is motivating Ukrainians now? The end of war. What we want is to be on our land. We don't need anything of someone else's. We want only something that belongs to us, and that's what we are protecting. We are very motivated people, and one of the motivations, apart from our homeland and our homes, are these values that Mr. Mondi, you just mentioned. We are protecting our common goals with Europeans. This is the second motivation. The third one is we want to show to everything that Ukraine is not afraid of the second largest army in the world. We are showing the example of the independent country and the fight of the independent people. So you can see the first and the third one how we do it on the daily basis in resisting Russian army. In terms of European orientation and protection of European goals, for us, this is a unifying factor, the fact that we are moving towards the European Union. And maybe this week we will receive the candidate status, and this will only strengthen our power, our capacity. What European Union should do for us? Nothing. European Union has to simply consider Ukraine as an equal partner, and whatever that you are doing for the members of the European Union, you should be doing for us. And since we're on the forefront of protection of our common values, I think we require a little bit more than other countries, because it is harder for us these days. But nevertheless, I would like to thank the countries of the European Union who are fighting the sanction war against Russia, who are fighting a political war against Russia, and who are fighting by supporting our army with weapons. And what you said, that tomorrow this question will be considered in the Senate, that's an extremely important question of support to the Ukrainian army. And I would like to say that you are supporting not the advance of the Ukrainian forces, you are supporting the defense capability of our army. At all areas where we're advancing, these are Ukrainian lands. We're not crossing the border. We are not killing civilians and citizens of Russian Federation, no matter what their position on this war is. We are an adequate nation who want to be independent. So please support us in this. In terms of the second question, what role an Italy can play in terms of the security, what I personally can see is among the security guarantor countries in the nearest future, this is something that we will need to have in the circle of these friends and guarantors. We see Italy. We think Italy should be there. We respect Italian history, culture, and principles. We support Italian government. We welcome their assistance, and we are very grateful for this. And I think that the journalist who asked the question mentioned that she was in Ukraine 10 days before the war, and she asked what else can be done. Sometimes it is very important to say the truth, and in order to speak the truth about what's going on in Ukraine, sometimes it is worthwhile to find time and be present on the ground. So this is why I would like to invite you. You have to tell people what's going on, because the war is far from any single country, and to know what is going on during the war and what Ukraine is fighting for, sometimes you have to visit the place. So if you want to help us with your weapon, because journalists fight with words, you can come and see for yourself and tell the story to your beautiful people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. You gave us a very modest but very deep lesson of what the human person can be, what a well-meant love for one country can bring to, and from the deep from the deep of our heart, we wish all the best to you, to your country, and to our common Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Good luck. Thank you for this opportunity. Goodbye.
Dopo questa testimonianza su una realtà che in verità sta condizionando ogni piega della nostra vita individuale, sociale, economica, nazionale e internazionale, non è un parlar d'altro, tornare... Sorry. Thank you. Okay, after this touching message, and I will not go through what I was trying to say in Italian, we go to the analysis of our world and European scenario, by now with the ability to incorporate also emotionally what President Zelensky allowed us to hear directly. So I would like to invite to the podium Commissioner Gentiloni to deliver his keynote address. Thank you very much.
Dear students, great pleasure to be here after having heard the words of President Zelensky, his call for the possibility for refugees to return back to their homes, his call for resistance, his call for support, and for our support, the Italian support, the European support in rebuilding Ukraine. I think this was really a great moment to open this global policy forum. Last time I was here at Bocconi, it was at the beginning of February, and we were discussing how the post-pandemic recovery was going on with a completely different mood, very optimistic mood at the time. Now, Russia's reckless war in Ukraine has sent shockwaves all over the world. We are facing an energy crisis, food crisis, and a cost of living crisis. So as you know, inflation has reached levels we had not seen in decades. My generation knew inflation, but several generations that are here in this room did not have an experience with high inflation. Forecast for global growth has been lowered sharply. Food shortages and droughts are threatening large parts of the developing world, putting the achievement of sustainable development goals at risk. And in the midst of all this, we still have to cope, and please don't forget this, with the climate crisis and perhaps also with the global pandemic. So these are global challenges. No single country can tackle them on its own, and they require global solutions. This is why this forum is so important. Rescuing the global economy requires carefully calibrated and coordinated policies. The overall focus must be on providing humanitarian relief, supporting the most vulnerable groups, and laying down the conditions for sustainable growth. G7 and G20 remain key fora to drive forward a coordinated international response. At our level, the EU, we have announced an unprecedented package of macro-financial assistance to support Ukraine's short-term financing gaps and the longer-term reconstruction effort. Yes, we are ready to continue to support Ukraine. And this week, Ukraine should become formally candidate to join the European Union, as the Commission proposed last Friday. And all of us know, having seen what happened in Ukraine in the past years, the demonstration with the European flag, where the political environment for Ukraine, we all consider how important to be a candidate for the European Union will be. We have also made clear that our debt and deficit rules in Europe will remain on hold for 1 more year. This will allow national governments to take targeted measures to cushion the impact of high energy prices and support the integration of refugees. Finally, we are continuing to push forward with the implementation of the National Recovery and Resilience Plan and the Next Generation EU. Now these plans have a new element linked to our goal of quickly reducing our reliance on Russian fossil fuels, and to do so by being even more ambitious on the transition to a green economy. Russia's invasion has been a game changer, not just for Europe's energy policy, but also for our common defense and for future trade relations. Today, talk of deglobalization is rife. I find this misleading, honestly. Rather than deglobalization, I believe we will see changing pattern of globalization, making globalization more secure. Economic integration is a source of strength. It is, after all, the main driver behind the EU's economic success. So while we must isolate those who seek to weaponize this economic interdependence, we must also continue to push for an open, rules-based, multilateral trade system and work together as an international community to address our common challenges and build a stronger, greener, fairer global economy. Thank you, and happy to take a few questions if you have.
Thank you very much, President Gentiloni. We have roughly 12 minutes and 4 questions. Actually, short questions to allow longer answers. My first question is, we witness gloomy forecasts. How to avoid, in a situation in which prices are skyrocketing, energy crisis is there, food crisis is there, how to avoid a worst-case scenario for the European economy?
Well, I think we can avoid a worst-case scenario, meaning a recession, a stagflation, provided that first we react united. Of course, we have to manage inflation, and so monetary policy is evolving. Of course, we have to change also our fiscal policies in the sense that we can't anymore provide universal support as we were providing during the pandemic crisis. We should make this support much more selective. So first, coordinate and show unity. Second, Next Generation EU, Recovery and Resilience Plan. These plans give the possibility to our economies to continue to support growth. And it's not digging holes and filling holes. It's real reforms and investments. And third, we have to mix the fact that we need to address the energy prices crisis, especially for lower income households. And this is what European governments are doing, but without putting on hold the green transition. This is a difficult mix to achieve, because at the same time, of course, we have to react to price increases, but this reaction should not undermine the fact that we need efficiency of energy, renewables, and the green transition. If we lose this opportunity because of the increasing energy prices, I think we will have done a big mistakes for the coming generations.
So it's for the governments to perform united and in efficient ways. This is actually key. And Europe has a tool, which is the European Growth and Stability Pact, which has been suspended. As we know, it's suspended now since 2020. It can't be an illimited suspension. So we have to do something with the pact to actually update it probably. How to be at the same time orthodox enough not to raise suspicions, but also efficient enough to allow what you just said?
Well, first of all, let me clearly state that the fact that we again suspended for 2023 the rules is not meaning a call for free spending for all. It's only reacting to the extreme uncertainty of the situation, which is caused predominantly by the war and by the possible consequences of the war, especially on the energy field. So this is the message, that we need to have room of maneuver, agility. The message is not that governments are invited or allowed, especially in high-debt countries, to spend for all, which is not the case in this moment. We will launch after the summer our proposal as European Commission to review our economic governance, the Stability and Growth Pact, with a clear goal to have a real path of reduction of the debt. And indeed, to have a real reduction, you need to have a realistic path of reduction of the debt, because if it is not realistic, it will not happen. And second, to avoid that the commitment to reduce the debt means choking growth and the recovery. So here again, a delicate balance between the need of having a serious path of reduction of the debt, discussed with member states, and not only decided on the basis of general and abstract benchmarks, and at the same time avoid that this path of reduction, which is needed, is something killing the room of maneuver for investments that we still have. So a delicate balance, as always, but I am convinced that working hard, the Commission can come with a good proposal in the coming weeks after the summer.
Thank you very much. So light at the end of the tunnel in a way. No?
Hopefully. Hopefully. Yes.
Look, we have some room for two questions from our students. I will, if you allow me, I will take it two in the row to allow you for one final answer. And the first question is by a student of Bocconi University. I encourage you to speak loud, because with President Zelensky, it was almost impossible to hear, even for me being here. So be bold. You are not bold enough. You have to strengthen.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Commissioner Gentiloni, for your intervention. My question would be, given current events and we understood how EU public policies, EU public goods such as I'm thinking of health prevention, green and digital transition, as well as security, of course, are fundamental, essential to our sustainable growth. But how to finance them? Given the experience of the next generation EU, my question would be, what is your opinion about the future of EU common debt? Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now, one of our G20 global ambassadors, please, lady.
Good afternoon, and thanks you, Commissioner Gentiloni, for the insightful speech. I'm Laurence Millieri, one of ISPI G20 global ambassadors, and my question for you is the following. The European Commission has already shown an unexpected degree of solidarity towards Ukraine, and do you think there's still room to do more? Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you very much for these questions. First, public goods. How do we address the mountain, if we want to be honest, of investment that are needed for our main goals? Because we are referring through Next Generation EU, we were referring mostly to three challenges. First, the Green Deal. Second, the digital innovation. And third, what we call now the resilience. So the quality of our social system, not only in healthcare, but of course, strongly also in healthcare. Then the war is signaling us a new dimension, which is also necessary, and that we call the strategic autonomy of the European Union, meaning energy, so closing with the dependence from fossil fuels, and especially with Russian fossil fuels, common defense, and also the need to make our supply chain safer. Because despite the fact that we still want to keep globalization, we need a more secure globalization. So we need a European commitment, for example, for semiconductors or for cloud technologies. Without these investments, we will lag behind other global players, and this is not possible for Europe. So we have a mountain to climb. My services estimated, for example, only for the green and digital transition, a need of 650 billion additional investment per year until 2030. Every year, 650 additional per year, every year until 2030. Of course, most of these investments should be and will be private investments. And the role of the European Commission is to contribute to establish the rule of the games. We have the taxonomies for private investors and a series of tools to encourage private investment. And you know very well that there is a lot of availability of investing for purpose in the private sector. But at the same time, part of this mountain should need to be climbed also through public investment. Part of this is Next Generation EU, the National Recovery and Resilience Plan. Do we need a permanent fiscal capacity in the European Union? Well, there is a big discussion about this. I think that this is a strategic horizon for the European Union to have a stable central fiscal capacity. It's not for tomorrow, probably, but the success of Next Generation EU, if it functions well, I think will be the basis to have new initiatives, putting together common resources for common goals. So we have the discussion on the rules, but we have the need to implement what we have, Next Generation EU. It's 800 billion euros of common money for common purposes, because again, as the European experience shows, if it works, it can be repeated. Perhaps not as it is, for different goals with different tools. On Ukraine, well, of course, we need to do more. We will do more. I would not underestimate the symbolic importance of the step that could be taken in this week by the European Council, if the European Council, I am quite convinced it will support our proposal for the Ukrainian candidacy to the European Union. you can say, okay, but what is this changing? I think President Zelensky was very clear in answering this question. This is giving an horizon to the Ukrainian people. We saw even people die in these years before the war with the European flag and supporting the European ideals. And this was extremely important for Ukraine. So I would not underestimate the symbolic value of this, but of course we need to do much more. Support now. They need 5 to 6 billion per month to fill the gap of their public finances. Their public finances are working. It's impressive, but it is working despite the war. So they need to fill the gap. This is not only European Union, it's for the global community to help. And they need reconstruction. And we will propose a framework, a platform, a common tool for all countries to contribute to Ukrainian reconstruction. And I think that each time we hear the Ukrainian representative, and especially President Zelensky speaking, we understand how huge is this responsibility for us. So joining the European Union gradually, it will not be something that will be reached as a conclusion in the coming months. It will take years, but it is the achievement of a cultural, political, valorial goal for the Ukrainian people. At the same time, we have to support their reconstruction and also to support their resistance. Let me close on this. I think the President was very clearly saying what the support on weapons they are asking is for, is to protect their country, is not to attack, invade other countries. And if we are serious on this, we can't be reluctant, we should be committed. And I'm sure that the European Union will continue to be committed. It will be a challenge because someone will try to use the difficulties of our economy, blaming support to Ukraine, blaming sanctions. I think we should blame the Russian authorities who initiated this war. Not the victims, not the sanctions, but the Russians.
Thank you very much. Just to remind that the European flag and the Ukrainian flag have the same colors. So after all, it's got a meaning. No? Thank you so much, Commissioner.
We have just heard from President Zelensky what is the situation on the ground, the evolution of the war, but he also mentioned the widespread effects, the implications of the war.